People agree long before they think they decided. Agreement engineering works by shaping the path before the question appears. By the time consent is requested, resistance is already weakened. In practice, this means agreement is prepared, not requested. The interaction is structured so saying no feels out of place. This is done by aligning tone, pacing, and assumptions early. The other person feels the flow and follows it. It shows up when someone says yes without remembering why. They did not evaluate, they arrived where the path led. Agreement is engineered by starting with uncontested truths. Small, obvious statements lower the barrier to acceptance. Each yes makes the next one easier. In practice, this means beginning with points that feel undeniable. The brain shifts into agreement mode. This is done by stacking simple confirmations before the real request. By the time the key point arrives, resistance feels inconsistent. It shows up when someone says that makes sense repeatedly. Consistency takes over. Stopping feels wrong. Agreement forms faster when objections are pre-handled. If resistance is named first, it loses force. The other person feels seen and disarmed. In practice, this means acknowledging concerns before they speak. You show awareness without opening debate. This is done by stating the likely objection calmly and moving past it. The listener feels understood and follows along. It shows up when someone says, "You already answered my concern." They did not object. They accepted the framing. Agreement is engineered through momentum, not pressure. Smooth progress reduces critical pauses. When the conversation keeps moving, the mind stops interrupting. In practice, this means you avoid sharp transitions. Each point flows naturally into the next. This is done by keeping responses brief and forward-moving. Silence is filled before doubt forms. It shows up when decisions feel continuous rather than deliberate. No single step stands out. Agreement slips through. Agreement becomes easier when responsibility is shared. People resist being controlled but accept being involved. Participation feels like ownership. In practice, this means asking for input that does not change direction. You invite collaboration without surrendering control. This is done by letting them choose details, not outcomes. They defend the decision because they helped shape it. It shows up when someone says, "We decided this together." The structure was never equal. The feeling was. Agreement is engineered by managing emotional state. People agree more when they feel calm and respected. Low threat reduces scrutiny. In practice, this means keeping tone steady and reactions muted. Strong emotion triggers defense. This is done by responding without urgency or intensity. The other person mirrors the calm. It shows up when disagreements fade without resolution. Nothing was solved. Tension was removed. Agreement forms when alternatives are quietly limited. Too many options invite resistance. Too few invite suspicion. In practice, this means offering a narrow range of acceptable paths. Each option feels reasonable. This is done by excluding extremes before they are considered. The listener chooses inside the safe zone you created. It shows up when someone debates between two options you suggested. They stopped looking elsewhere. The field was closed. Agreement accelerates when identity is involved. People act to protect how they see themselves. Choices linked to identity feel personal. In practice, this means connecting agreement to traits they value. You imply what people like them usually do. This is done by framing the decision as a reflection of character. Disagreement risks self-image. It shows up when someone agrees but explains it as their principle. They were not persuaded. They were preserving identity. Agreement is engineered through repetition and calm certainty. The same point stated steadily gains weight. Certainty feels like knowledge. In practice, this means restating the core idea without elaboration. You do not argue. This is done by holding the same position regardless of reaction. The other person adapts to reduce friction. It shows up when they start repeating your words. That repetition is alignment. The agreement has transferred. Agreement happens when resistance feels more costly than compliance. People choose the path with the least social or emotional risk. In practice, this means making refusal feel awkward or isolating. You do it without threat or force. This is done by framing agreement as normal and refusal as deviation. The person agrees to restore comfort. It shows up when someone says fine just to move on. They did not change their mind. They escaped the pressure you built.